Well, welcome everyone to today's Fireside Chat. We hope conversations like these will connect more REI members to our key partners and to issues that our outdoor community faces, especially during times like these with the COVID pandemic. I'm Eric Arts, and I serve as President and CEO of REI. REI is a different kind of company in many ways. We are a consumer cooperative. We're 82 years young. We're owned by our 19 million lifetime members, and we share a common purpose, and that is a belief in a life outdoors. We are also deeply committed to the idea that the outdoors can and should be accessible to everyone. One of the ways we make that commitment real is by supporting hundreds of local and regional nonprofit organizations across the country each year. Last year, we invested more than $8 million to support over 400 organizations, most of them grassroots organizations. In 2019, we also surpassed $100 million in cumulative giving. So the idea is to support as many of these heroic organizations that, like us, believe the outdoors can and should be for everyone. Today, we want to highlight community leaders who are working hard to create more opportunities in cities and towns across the country to access the benefits of time in nature. And we're very fortunate to be joined by two grassroots community leaders, Lucienne Nicholson from Inclusive Woods and Us in Rochester, New York. We also have Marcus Trinidad, who runs the Audubon Center in Debs Park, which is in the heart of Northeast Los Angeles. We are extremely grateful to community leaders like Lucienne and Marcos, who dedicate their lives to creating outdoor opportunities for people of all backgrounds, but especially historically marginalized groups to get into nature and to experience its healing power. We're also here today to learn about how the COVID pandemic has affected small organizations like these and what we in the broader community might do about it. To help, the co-op has created the REI Outdoor Emergency Fund. During the pandemic, REI is doing its best to continue to support our hundreds of nonprofit partners across the country. We're hoping some of you that have tuned in might help to support these organizations as well, many others like them, by contributing to the emergency fund, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So Lucienne, Marcos, welcome. And thank you both for joining us today. And thank you for the work that you both do, especially for persevering with your work during these trying times. I'm looking forward to learning from you today. I'm sure you have a lot to offer me, to offer REI, and to offer our community that's tuning in. But before we dive into the discussion of the pandemic and how it's affecting your organizations, you both have amazing stories, and I know we'd like to know more about you and your backstory, how time in nature has shaped you and why it's led you to the work you do today. For me, I grew up in the heart of Pennsylvania. It was a very rural community, primarily a farming community. Nature was all around us. We worked, we played outside in nature all week, every day, because that's the way we did life. But Lucienne, maybe you could start off. Inclusive Woods and Us is based in Rochester, New York, but you have an amazing story from Haiti. You were actually raised in the crowded city of Port-au-Prince. So maybe tell us about your discovery of nature, and I know the viewers will enjoy the story of your grandmother as well.
Thank you, Eric, for the introduction. And right off the bat, I can see that you and I have a similar page in our life story. I too have spent time on the farm. I was born in the chaotic Port-au-Prince, which is also the capital of Haiti. And of course, this was a time of diesel fuel, so lots of pollution, lots of noise, lots of heat, lots of concrete, and a lot of density among dwellers. I was very fortunate in that my mother was very insightful because she grew up in the rural area of Haiti. I was fortunate enough to have ancestors with a lot of land in the hills, in the mountain ranges in the northwest area of Haiti. So my mother insightfully every summer from June through October, which is the beginning of school, she will pack us up, put us on the bus on a long, very treacherous road around canyons to get us to the hills where we will spend summer with my grandmother. I didn't know how lucky I was and how much I was going to need the lessons and the experiences that I will discover in nature. There in that space, I found freedom, a freedom I didn't have in the capital. I was free to roam. I discovered nature. I learned many life lessons that are still serving me today. I drank water from springs, and we call them sources, as is the right name, right from the ground. That was pristine, clean, crystal, cold, wholesome, and unpolluted. I saw the sources of my food. I saw how coffee grew. I will run around like a child, and a child, I will spin around 360 and look towards the heavens, and I see green and blue. Under
Wow.
my feet, I see the deep earth, the brown of the earth that looked just like me. I had such an experience of belongingness, a sense of place, even a sense of leadership of being my own person in the tiny body of a 5, 16-year-old. Everything I learned on my grandmother's farm, from the trees and the mountains and the rivers, all the flora and fauna, were life lessons that built me into the human beings that I am today, that has advised my life, that has given me direction as a young immigrant who will later come to America. So I am so grateful that I had that opportunity, and I think every child deserves it.
Wonderful. Great story. How about you, Marcos? A lifelong resident, I believe, of Los Angeles. Tell us about your relationship with nature and our feathered friends. How did you come to work at the Audubon Center in the heart of one of the largest cities in the country?
You know, it's interesting, just to hear Lucienne's experience and think about uh, when I was a child and running the streets of Northeast Los Angeles and um, thinking about that time and asking myself the question of you know what did I think the definition of nature was or is or what is outdoors. And I think for a very long time I felt that nature was something that was not in the city and that you had to go far away to experience nature. And as I think back at my childhood and just experiences that I've had, um, nature has always been around me, and it just looks very different, and it's more now what my perception is. And for me, just growing up in LA and in Highland Park, Highland Parque, where the center is located, um, we're grateful for the just the resources that were available. There are a lot of open spaces. It's an area that has a bit more of a park access than a lot of other spaces within Los Angeles. And I just remember at that time we were allowed to explore the streets and we were allowed to explore the neighborhood. And I spent a lot of time in Arroyo Seco, which is another riverway that goes right through the neighborhood, and it runs along Debs Park, which hits the confluence of the LA River. And really growing up there, and that was a place that we used to go as kids just to get away from adults and get away from everything else, because no one was at that time was going there. And that's where people would go to get away from everyone else. Now it's a place that people go to experience urban nature. But for me, just that that love for nature beyond a city, or what we would call outdoors, was really when I was in the military and I was stationed in southern Germany, and going out to the Black Forest and going out to places like Garmisch and experiencing this outdoor um, type of life, putting a book on my back and hiking. Um, you know, it was for a few different reasons, but once I got out, that feeling that it gave me, I started to miss. And then realized that, wow, I can actually go and do this, but do it without care, just different equipment. So that naturally led me to study geology, and I started studying geology and anthropology and just understanding the relationships that we have to the earth, and how this can be shared with each other. And I really got into studying rocks and trees and everything that goes in between that. And you can only stare at minerals for so long until you start noticing the things that are moving, which for me were the birds. So I feel that curiosity that we have as a child had left me for a period of time during my teenage years. But being able to reconnect with that curiosity allowed me to experience these jobs and activities that I never thought were open to me or folks like me. And now it is I feel my duty to make sure that those connections are made for folks in the neighborhood that I grew up in. I like to tell the story where my parents actually met 1 block from Debs Park at the bus stop. So people like to joke around. It was my destiny to be working there.
Oh, what a great story too. Let's try and build on this idea of nature and time in nature. During the pandemic, I've personally found myself working endless hours, running the co-op from right here on this yoga ball every day, pretty much all day, and I find myself needing nature, to relieve stress, to recharge. My garden right outside my window here has been my savior, and it's kind of interesting, right? How just planting a simple seed in the ground and watching it grow over 7 days and pop out of the ground gives you so much kind of joy and recharges your soul. My wife finds it hilarious, but Lucienne, I've spent some time on the site on your site for Inclusive Woods and Us, and I love what you say about the health benefits of time in nature, and I'm wondering, really from a well-being perspective, a health perspective, how do you see the benefits of nature show up before the pandemic, and how has the pandemic gone in Rochester for you, and what do you see people doing? How are they exploring nature now as we're in the middle of this pandemic?
Thank you for the question. There are many ways I can come at the question. There's a personal lens, my own life as a now privileged middle-class person living in a very green suburban space with access to many trails, and to the canal side. And I can also come through it by the lens of the children whom I serve. For me, the pandemic has only stopped me from going to my formal space, let's say going to the Y or any other center where you can pay high for a membership to get a workout, or I was never really separated from nature because I can just walk down the hill from where I live currently, although that was not always the lifestyle that I had in the United States. But currently I can put on my sneakers and I can walk down the hill, and I had the trails there. And especially when everyone was sent home in March and we all stayed home in that period of time, the trails were really desolate. So I had that privilege. So I want to speak to the children whom I served, whose needs can only be served through organizations such as Woods and Us, whose needs can only be served through collaboration with the local REI, where we're just about to get a gear drive going. We're just about to get some training going with Knowles, and we're discussing bringing a few members of the community to train as outdoors leaders, because I can't do it all by myself with the few volunteers that we have right now. So this is where we're heading. We're planning some super exciting events for the children who are just becoming open to the idea that there's wellness in nature, there's fun to be had in nature, and you can be nature stewards, and all the good lessons we're imparting to them. Well, these children, their access to nature is tied to me, is tied to their church, is tied to the school, is tied to the after school program. The entire experience with nature, if you can understand that, is institutionalized. Meaning if an institution doesn't show up, they don't get to do it overall. So my children, these children were turned back into the concrete space of the four walls, and they often don't have the luxury of owning a home. So they often are living in overcrowded spaces, intergenerational spaces, and the grown-ups are tied to public transport. What happened to public transport when the pandemic arrived? I still have my automobile. My husband has it, so we were not tied down by that. And so they don't have access to public transport, that don't have access to organizations such as Within Us who will take them out. And I was not able to continue my networking, my fundraising, my gear drive through REI to advance. Right. So what happened is that the people needed the most, the people already marginalized from nature. That's why I'm working so hard to take them to nature. We're completely cut off from nature. And we all have heard or read about the morbidity rate of death for Black and brown people, particularly urban Black poor. So the people who needed it the most at a time that it was most required were the one who became the most severed from nature. So this is how the pandemic showed up. For me, it wasn't, I'm not a new immigrant to the United States anymore. So it did not impact my life that it will have about 4 decades ago. But what it did do was having deleterious effect on the health and the freedom of movement of the children whom I serve. To me, that's how it showed up. And for the organization, what we did, we pivoted because we knew we couldn't afford to close down because there's not another organization for miles on end that's committed to do what Within Us doing. So we pivoted, we went online as far as keeping our meetings going, and then I moved all of my interactions, such as what I'm having right now, to online community relationship, which has grown extensively for us. And then I continue to look for opportunities to grow since I can go out to hike, and I continue to learn, and I stay in contact with the community, such as they kept reaching out to me because they felt so pent up. So that I wind up creating, since formally we're 501c3 not-for-profit with a board, we have bylaws, so I could not operate in the time of pandemic, but the requests kept coming that I wind up creating a Facebook group called Rochester Hiking Unicorns. And the reason I choose unicorns is because of the experience people different than a white male in the woods, the gaze that you get sometimes, you're unusual, what kind of being are you? And then because of all the different people, I call the organization inclusive Within Us, so people feel very included regardless where they're coming into the organization. So I said I have so many people from so many different spaces who want to come through the organization and through me to access nature. I'll call it the unicorns. This is where everyone is welcome. Everyone's feel the belonging that we seek to give them. So we founded Rochester Hiking Unicorn about 4 weeks ago. We had 136 members now, and it keeps coming. And what we provide for people is education and awareness about how to hike safely, leave no trace behind, has to be a good steward, and all of that. So people are now going hiking on their own, and I see an expansion that Within Us is going to be able to just dovetail from when we go back post-pandemic. So the pandemic has been at first very harsh. It continues to impact these families. But with the Rochester Hiking Unicorn, I'm finding more and more ways to reconnect the ties and also do what I really want to see happen. It's a paradigm shift. I want to be unnecessary. I want to normalize outdoor spaces into the people that I encounter. And I think this is what we're doing at the time of the pandemic, showing people you have the right to access this. This is how you can do it. This is how we can support you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Marcos, I noticed that the Audubon Center, the park, was closed during the pandemic. So what have you been able to do, and how's it changing your visitors? What's it been like for you going through the pandemic?
Yeah, so we have been closed just a couple of weeks before the pandemic as well. And I think we closed about February, and when the pandemic closures happened, we never reopened, and we're actually taking this opportunity to do some construction and some upgrades to the center itself. So we will continue to be closed until the end of this calendar year, and we're hoping to open up in the beginning of the year. And that's allowing us to to replace our roofs, and we're replacing our solar panel system. In relation to how this impacts us and what we do with the community, is we looked at the accessibility to the center and how we were connecting with folks that were in the neighborhood and them being able to come out and participate in in-person programming. And we had already acknowledged that there was this, I feel, barrier in terms of how we would interpret valuable use of outdoor space, or what is a good way to use outdoor space, and in the conservation movement and the outdoor movement as a whole. If you're not hiking, if you're not kayaking, if you're not biking, then that's not an outdoor experience. So what we started to do is really look at our community and value all uses of outdoor space, even if it's sitting under a tree, cooking carne asada, and spending that outdoor time with your family. So because we had this shift, we stopped trying to get people to go somewhere they would normally not go. And we started bringing this idea of nature that exists everywhere. And we started going out to them. And we started going out into the community. We started to leave the physical space of the center and talk to people and talk to the community about things that they can observe in their neighborhood. So if they're walking from this, from their home to the bus stop, what are some of the birds that they can see? Los Angeles has a lot of birds. So it's actually changing the state of mind that we're not in nature, that we're not part of nature, that it exists. It's very different. And if we're making these observations, we can connect to the outdoors, to nature, anywhere we go. So now that we're not able to do in-person meetings or events, we started taking a lot of that online and providing digital communication. So we were doing backyard birding, where I would go on an Instagram live and I'd give tips on how to bird in your backyard, whatever your backyard may look like. We started doing tips, just short videos, and it has been the feedback that we've been receiving has been that it has been extremely helpful to put imagery of common birds that you're able to see in the neighborhood. And we were getting feedback that, wow, I always wanted to know what that bird was. Now I know, or now I know how to identify it. Because for a long time we used to provide these opportunities for community to come out and actually become land stewards, and they would hike the trails, they would help us take care of the land. And for us, that restoration event was really about restoring the connection of people back to the land, not just putting plants in the ground. So we feel that we're able to continue that restoration. It's just through a very different platform and having to be very creative. So the pandemic's definitely taken a toll on us as a team. We like being around our coworkers. We like being at the office. We like being with the community members. So this digital Zoom meeting, and whichever you choose to use, whichever platform, it's taking some use to get to. But we also feel that we have been able to check in more with coworkers across the network and check in with partners. And there's a lot of intention there to really stick together to find out creative ways to continue to serve the community, but also to get through this in a very safe way.
Well, I'd like to turn the conversation a little bit. Both of your passion is so clear and your work is so important. But before I do that, in the early days of the pandemic, many of our 19 million REI members reached out and said, how can we help? And as a result, REI established the Outdoor Emergency Fund. And I want to remind folks that We are trying to help organizations like Lucien's and Marcos's that we're talking about today. And to do that, we set up this emergency fund. So if you're interested, if you've tuned in and you want to support these organizations and many others, please visit rei.com/philanthropy, and you'll find a button to contribute to this fund. And as I mentioned, the fund will be used to support organizations like this at the community grassroots level and many, many others like them. One of the things that amazes me about our outdoor community is our desire to keep learning in nature, learning together, learning to progress with one another. And I know for REI, we're an 80-year-old company, yet we still have so much to learn, especially as it relates to racial justice in the outdoors. It's been around. It's an issue that's been around for a long time. We know it. We understand it. But it's also here. It's here right now. It's more in the front of our minds, perhaps, than it's ever been with the events of the summer here. So I feel like our larger institutions and organizations are on the verge of accelerating change. Our hope is that we're going to see more change, right? And there are different levers to pull: education reform, health reform, police reform. So I'm very interested in your perspectives. As you think about the challenges we face as a country, environmental justice, social justice, racial justice, what would you like to see from organizations like REI? What institutional changes would you like to see from a broader perspective? What would you hope that we as an organization, as a community, might push further on to create more systemic change? Lucienne, do you want to take that?
Sure. I do have an ongoing relationship with the local REI. I was so glad to see that store open. And your local leaders know that I am a totally committed person to holistic approach to everything that I do. I believe that we are one unit. Whatever I do, the body is one unit, nature is one, the world is one. And I am particularly interested in seeing across the board change. I don't just want to be involved with Gear Drive with REI or perhaps having this fireside chat. I would like to see a relationship that is comprehensive and holistic, that is concerned with the education of the local population, that is committed to reflecting the mission, the vision, and the messaging that I'm doing. If I tell the children, you too could be a CEO at REI, you too can do the 46 peaks. If I tell the children, you're gonna be safe when you go hiking. We're having huge racial aggression problem in the Adirondacks right now, in the Saranac Lake area, in the Watertown area, in Lake Placid area. Black people are under attack, verbal attack that are significant enough to elicit feeling of being unsafe and feeling that you can be physically attacked. So we have REI, we have NOLS out there. I've done my wild medicine rescue with NOLS. I would like to see organizations standing up for us and say, not say in the boardroom that we belong, but go out there and say, these people belong. This is the only natural way nature can be natural, everybody included. We need people with big voice, people with capacity to hire and fire, have a lot of power. What I say may not matter, but what somebody like REI say that can hire and fire people, that can make donation, you can use the power of your wallet. You can use your power to access politicians at the highest level. So you need to pass legislation at the local level. You need to address these issues very significantly, because I am working in an organization like Inclusive Woods and Us, and I am telling them that we as an organization, we believe that everyone can be and should be included in nature, but I cannot expose them to violence or any feeling of being unsafe by providing gear. That's wonderful. By providing training, that's fantastic. But if they go there and they get harmed or feel that they can be harmed, we have done nothing. So how do you disrupt the local culture in the areas that I personally want to take and expose the children to. I understand what Marcus is saying very clearly, that nature is everywhere. I am nature. I carry this inside of me. There is not a moment when I'm not aware. At 63, if an ant moves to my right now in my peripheral, I can see. That's how connected I am. And my vision is not even that good. I am aware. I'm alive with nature. However, research has shown that nature comes in density. There's a reason why I feel one way in the tiny park in the capital in Port-au-Prince and another way on my grandmother's farm. Scientific studies have measured what our brain scans look like, what is in our blood when we're in deep nature. I want to work with organizers like Marcus to help RAI to allow that immediate access to nature to happen, but also to understand that in urban spaces, you normally don't have the density of trees. There's a complete deforestation. And usually the body of water is polluted. The children can go jumping in there or fish or eat anything from it. So I want to see comprehensive, holistic approach, because each of the children, they're one unit, they're comprehensive, holistic people. And so that REI will be involved in policy making about true freedom of movement and inclusion for Black people. Because I have access myself today. I have an automobile. I still don't feel safe to go just anywhere in America just because I can go to REI and buy my gear. I am a member. I can buy my own gear, drive my own car, and get my own cabin. But what does it all mean if I'm going to be unsafe? So the safety issue is a big block to the access. That has to be addressed. Our human rights are being violated. We are contained under a blue sky because we cannot move where we want to when we need to. So if RAI can commit, and at the environmental level, I watched the other fire chat where we were addressing environmental policy. I am glad to hear about all the jobs that are coming. It's fantastic that we're going to restore the environment. For whom? Can I go? Can I go safely? So I'm not just asking to be trained better, to have more people look like me in Rochester to be trained better, but I'm asking for REI through policy making, through relationship in Washington, relationship at state level, relationship at regional level, to help people understand that I belong, that I'm coming, and I need to be there safely. So it's really everything. And then within the organization itself, if I were to attend one of your board meetings, I would like to see a little bit of me in there. Then I know that you are serious about change. When I go to your store, I like to be reflected as well. When I see your catalog, I go to your website. It's a sense of total belongingness, not a little bit of this and then a hiccup and then a little bit of that the other day. Something that we never seen before, because we can do this. We can do this. We just have to dive deep and trust on the other side. It's going to be better for all.
Right on. I love your sentiment and your comments. So thank you for your candor, and thank you obviously for what you're doing and what you're pushing into. Marcos, how about you? What are you seeing from a racial justice perspective in LA, and what are you thinking about? What would you suggest?
You know, it's a big question, and I appreciate Lucin's answer as well, because I agree with a lot of it. I feel that anytime we begin to have this discussion, we need to acknowledge why, and it's in my opinion, it's because this country was built on white supremacy, and it continues to drive and enforce institutional racism that has impacted people of color. And for us to really acknowledge what that means, we're seeing it every day. And again, with the safety issues and accessibility, when we look at national parks, and when national parks ask themselves, well, why do we not see people of color in the outdoors? Or why do we not see people of color in our national parks? It's almost like we have this amnesia. We forgot that people of color were kicked out of their homes in national parks or out of their homes in nature to be preserved to fit one group of people's narrative of what the outdoor experience is. So when I think of that and I think of history, there's no question in my mind why it is the way it is. So for me, when I look at REI as a company and as a company that is socially conscious and that is able to make these decisions and have the impact that you have, 19 million members, that's amazing. And for me, being a member and probably going to REI more than I'd like to admit, um, I'm there because of the product, and I'm there because of the customer service. I'm there because of the principles. Me personally, I was never turned away because I didn't see myself in the catalogs. And I shared this before where it's just like it doesn't matter to my father who's in the catalog or who is working there. He's just not going to pay $70 for a pair of shorts. That's his his view. Whereas myself, I'll buy him those shorts for his birthday because it's a very different process. I am sold on the principles that the company is run by. But when we think about racial justice and we think about all these issues, what I look at REI doing a really good job at is being able to get people outdoors and equipped people with the awareness and education they need to be outdoors. Now, what does that mean when you have a lens of also equipping people of color to be outdoors?
Right.
Is there a way to provide training for members that are on the lines of nose training or wilderness and first aid? Well, is there a training that exists, or is there's something that REI can do that also provides a training that, hey, when you're outdoors and you see some stuff that's not safe, like someone treating another person wrong, what are some things that can be done so we can actively address racism in the outdoors? Because if we continue to ignore that it's happening, if we continue to ignore the cause, we're always going to be in this circle. And for me, it's really focusing on the members. I know as a business, you want to be able to expand your members and what are things that can attract a new audience, which is very important for the sustainability of a company. I'm aware of that. However, what are things that can be designed to educate the current audience? Because when we think about it and when we think of equity, diversity, and inclusion training, what type of training do these individuals need? And that's the thing that I find so fascinating, because a lot of folks consider my work as equity, diversity, and inclusion inclusion work, and I'm over here just considering it work. So it's just a very different view of how we approach the outdoors. And those are the things that I find that are extremely important for companies and individuals to continue to support the organizations that are actually doing the work for the people. And then there are the organizations and the companies that are going on about their day that may need some training and may need some awareness on some of these issues that are going on. And it shouldn't be these organizations' burden to have to educate those people
Right.
on these issues. It's just like when you want bear awareness training, or when you like, I don't know anything about first aid. I need to go out and figure this out. You make that happen.
Right.
And REI provides that training. You're able to do that. But when I think about issues of racism outdoors and lack of accessibility, I automatically assume someone that is experiencing that is going to come and educate me, instead of me saying, oh, hey, well, maybe I should go and take a class on it, or maybe I should do my own research. So maybe being able to provide some of that would be a bridge to make this happen, and it wouldn't put the burden on organizations like ours to do that awareness and education or provide that, but it's also providing a place to do it.
Well, you guys, you've certainly given us more than we perhaps expected in this fireside chat. It's awesome, and I really appreciate your candor. You know, this is not the moment for us to talk about what we've done or what we're aspiring to do here at REI, but really to learn and listen and continue to evolve. And for me, it's really a journey about figuring out how to accelerate, be bolder in our aspirations. And again, at the center of REI is this idea that the outdoors in nature should and can be accessible for all. We all recognize that is not the case, and we're all on a journey together. So again, I really just want to thank you for your candor and your thoughts and your comments, and especially for what you do every day, the passion that you bring to you know, yourselves, your communities, your families. It's just incredibly impressive. And we're, you know, as REI, we're trying to do something new here. We're trying to reach through conversation at this virtual time to reach our 19 million members, to have these conversations, to build awareness, to build, frankly, more passion within our community to take on some of the challenges that we all face. So again, my accolades to you and your work, Inclusive Woods and Us in Rochester, New York, the Audubon Center at Debs Park, Lucien, Marcos, you're inspiring individuals. Thanks for your time today. One slight reminder, you know, we will continue as an organization to support these two individuals and their organizations. I hope others will join in to do the same. You can do so by going onto rei.com and philanthropy and contributing yourself. So thanks all for your time. For those that have listened, thanks for tuning in. And we hope to see you all outside sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.